Okay, here we are. This is Jay Brown Yoga Talks podcast. My name is Jay Brown. Welcome to you if you're new. And all the rest of y'all, what's going on? If this does happen to be the first time you're ever listening to this show, part of me wants to recommend that you go listen to a different episode first. Maybe that's just my own insecurities, but I'm breaking from my usual routine this week. And anyone who's listened to the show on the regular for any period of time knows that I never do that. I never break from my usual routine. But this week I am. You see, this episode will be posting the day after Christmas. And for the last several years, this week, I've always wanted to put like something special, like as like a Christmas gift, you know? And some years it's been like episodes with my daughters, one of which I want to talk about some today. But also it's sometimes just like an episode that, I don't know, it feels sweet or has a certain energy to it that feels like an appropriate way to end a year, you know, on something in like a heart level, you know. But what I found over the last few years is that I'll put an episode that I really want everyone to hear this week, and then a lot of people don't hear it. Like, not as many people listen to it as other episodes, especially like next week, you know, like the first week of the year, a lot more people seem to listen than this week. And that's probably because it's holidays and we all got stuff we're doing, right? And so maybe, you know, your next week, you're like, oh, I'll go back and listen to that one I missed, but then maybe you don't because the new one's there, right? And I have right now 5 episodes in the can. I have 5 already recorded talks that are what I would call top shelf. Not that all the conversations have been rewarding and are special in their own right, but every now and again I connect with someone in a certain way, or they have a certain experience in their life that coincides with something that's resonating with me. And, you know, and there's certain episodes that I think of as really high caliber episodes. And the 5 that I have recorded are all that way. And I just felt like it wouldn't be cool to put any of them this week, that they would get a shitty spot, that not as many people would hear it. And I didn't like that. And when I started this show more than 7 years ago, my co-producer Josh said to me, you know, you don't always have to have a guest. You could just do something shorter, like a 30 minutes of just you talking. And I was vehemently against this. I've never done this before where I put out an episode without a guest. And the reason for that is, as most of you know, I already interject so much of myself into the show, like into the intros and outros, and even into the conversations that I have, that I've always felt like, oh, that's not going to be sustainable. Like, people are going to get tired of just listening to me talk at some point. I get tired of just listening to me talk. I didn't think I could sustain enough to keep a weekly show going for years and years. And I'm definitely right about that. I'm so happy for all the learning and inquiry that happens on this show. It's really what keeps my creative juices going and keeps me inspired. So this week, I felt like I wanted to, just break from my usual thing, you know? Those of you who know me very well, I stick to like routines religiously for years and years and years, and I never break them. But this week I thought it might be a good opportunity to just break my routine a little and just talk to you about a few things, because there is stuff that happened this year that I feel warrants some kind of, I don't know, not closure because it's not done, but an update at the very least. And there were some real important lessons for me that I thought it would be nice to try to articulate. So in any case, like I said, if this is your first time here, me just talking at you may not be your cup of tea. And if that's the case, there's like hundreds of episodes of like really fantastic people saying really smart things. So I encourage you to go listen to those, and then you can come back if you want or not. But for regular listeners, especially people who've been listening throughout this year, there was huge challenges that I faced, in particular with my youngest daughter, Annabelle. And as I think I mentioned, if you go back a year ago to December last year, you can listen to the episode that I recorded with my daughter, Annabelle. I still get emails from 7-year-olds whose parents must have listened to my show and then had their kid listen to it. And they're so lovely. They're so the best emails, you know. And if you were listening since then, you would also know that 3 months after I published that episode with my daughter, she had what I could only call like a mental break or like a massive trauma response to the COVID policies at her school being lifted. So after her first year and a half of school, really, or almost 2 years of school, of being separated and masked from all of the kids and teachers, they brought the desks back together and took the masks off, and she couldn't deal. She really went to a place that I would have never imagined my child would go. You know, you read about trauma and you read about the way that people can respond to fear and anxiety and more extreme ways. And I've certainly dealt with adults in my life in the course of doing yoga practice and helping people through things that go on with them. Certainly, my own sister has her own issues. My sister has OCD, and that's what happened to Annabelle in this extreme situation. She first started having what I guess you would call as just full-blown anxiety attacks where she couldn't even talk. And then she started having extreme OCD and generalized anxiety disorder behaviors where she stopped sitting in chairs for months. From the time she woke up, from the time she went to bed, she never sat down. And she wouldn't let anybody touch her or be close to her. And she had violent outbursts. She would have rage, screaming sessions that would go on for upwards of an hour, you know. And I talked about it on the show. If you want to go back and listen to the episodes, you can listen to the intros where I was like suffering through this. And as I shared with everyone back then, at some point, we were so at a loss as to what to do for her. And she was suffering so much. You know, at some point, like singing bowls and meditation and CBD oil, it wasn't doing enough. She was suffering too much. So we sought, you know, professional care for her. And when you look into what the treatments are for children who exhibit these behaviors, it's a combination of cognitive behavioral therapy and medication. So we did start her on that protocol. We found her a therapist. She was very resistant at first. It was very hard to get her to go, and she did not want to go at all. And then we did also put her on sertraline, otherwise known as Zoloft. And it should be noted that it was literally a few weeks after we put her on the sertraline that study came out about serotonin in the brain and how the whole premise behind the use of these medications for depression was disproven. It's basically placebo effect, or at least it does seem to help some people. And if it does, we don't know why. At the very least, we could say that. If it's helping people, we don't know why. And, we started her on super low dose. I mean, you always start somebody on super low dose for like the first couple weeks just to make sure that they don't have any like crazy side effects, which are well documented. And then if they seem to tolerate it, they start to jack up the dosage. And the target dosage is somewhere around like even 150 milligrams, and between 100 and 200 milligrams, which is adult-sized dosage, which I thought was kind of crazy. Like we give our kids children's Tylenol in smaller dosages than adult dosages, but we give them adult dosages of sertraline. But you see, in the studies that they did that showed that kids with OCD benefited from sertraline, that's the dosage that they gave them. So anything under that, you might not get the same kind of results as the research showed. So in any case, we started her pretty low. She was at like 25 milligrams right at the beginning. And within like 2 weeks of her being on it, we did see a big shift, which was probably not necessarily the sertraline. You can't really know. They say it's supposed to take like 4 to 6 weeks before it really kicks in, before you really know if it's the medication even. And we saw a pretty immediate shift. I don't know if that was just a placebo effect because now she was taking medicine and had been to a doctor, and or maybe there was a range of other things. She got out of school, it was summertime. So a lot of things happened there. And ultimately, we did see some improvement, but there was still a lot of issues. Like she still would be consumed with compulsions for large portions of her day. And she was still, again, suffering quite a bit and still having like what I would call violent episodes. So we did kick up her dosage to, I believe it was 50 milligrams, where we kind of stayed for most of the summer. And she definitely was better than at the end of the school year. There was a lot of things better. She was sitting again. She would let us touch her again. But still, we were very concerned when it came time for school to start at the end of August. Because I had been in all these like parents with kids who have OCD groups, and it's like the big thing. You see, if your kid with OCD just decides that they can't go to school, like they're not able to do it, you're kind of fucked. Like, what are you going to do? You can't make your kid go to school, and you have to try to figure out some other way and start homeschooling, or sometimes there's special centers you can go to. There's just a whole new realm of challenge that happens if your kid won't go to school. And there's actually like a whole list of little markers that they have, like objective markers to determine whether or not your kid's okay. One of them is like, can they get to school on time? Are they having friends? Are they completing their work? Are they avoiding things in their lives? Are they having friends and play dates? There's like a list of things that you're kind of looking for to see. And at that time, she was not meeting those. Like, we were avoiding a lot of things, and she was not able to have play dates with her friends. And we were worried that she wasn't going to transition back to school. So leading up to that, we talked with her doctor, and we did up her medication to 75 milligrams, which is still half of the target dosage. But we did it because we were worried, and we wanted to try to give her as much of a help as we could in what we saw as a difficult transition for her. And I'm very happy to say that she made that transition wonderfully. Like, she has a fantastic teacher, and she just really was happy to go back to school. And since then, she's just continued to do better. She has been doing great in school, and she's got lots of friends, and she has play dates every day, and like, she's not exhibiting those same compulsions and behaviors that were so concerning. And 2 months into school, she was doing really well, but there was this one behavior that we were noticing, which is that some of the times she would seem very hyper. Not that she's not normally hyper by nature, but that she would seem hyper in a way that to me looked like chemically induced. You know, I've taken a fair amount of drugs in my life, and it looked to me like she was on some kind of speed, the way that she was behaving. So, of course, I looked into it, and sure enough, that is a well-known side effect of sertraline in kids. They call it activation. And in all of those parent with kids with OCD groups, they all go through this similar pattern where at some point the kid's doing better and then they're exhibiting this like hyperactivity, and you go back to the doctor and you tell them, and then they diagnose them with ADHD and they give them another medication for that. So most of the kids are on a combination of something like sertraline and another drug. They've got several. And I knew if we go to the doctor and we tell them this is what he's going to recommend. And at the time when she was exhibiting what I saw as this activation behavior, she was doing great. Those markers that I mentioned, all those list of things that are supposed to tell you whether or not your kid's doing okay, they were all checked, all good. She was all good. Like if she was the way she was prior to the full-on break and craziness that happened, we would not think that there was a problem. You know, we would not be seeking care for her. The only thing was this kind of being strung out on speed. That's what it seemed to me. I mean, again, but what do I know? I'm not a professional doctor. I'm just projecting all of my biases on it, you know? So I had a talk with my wife, and I said to her, look, at this point, she's doing great. This is how we want things to be going for her. And she's on this like 75 milligrams of sertraline, and she's got this one kind of like hyperactivity thing she's doing. I think it could be the medication. And I think if our goal is for her to be well without medication, we have to give her a chance to see if she can do that. We have to try and see if she can be well without the medication. We don't even really know how much the medication is the thing that's helping her. There's no way to know. So I was advocating for us to try tapering her off the medication and see if she could be okay. I said, now's the time when she's doing good to see if she can keep doing good, rather than waiting potentially to when she's not doing good, you know? And, you know, we were scared. My wife was very scared. But I managed to convince her that we try this on the condition, of course, that I spoke with her doctor and cleared it with him and got his advice. And he's a cool doctor, and he was helpful in that he gave me like the right dosaging recommendations, like how much to click her down and how often, in a way that would minimize any potential like, you know, side effects of her coming off. But here's the thing. You see, it would not have been his recommendation to do that. He basically said to me, if everything's going great, why would you change anything? And that's the idea, is that if she's doing good at this dosage, you should just keep this dosage. Why would you ever even consider changing anything? And I said to him what I just said to you, that it's our goal that she be well without medication. So we want to try to see if she can do that. And of course, he supported our choice to try that. He gave us lots of suggestions, and of course said, well, you know, if it goes south, you can always bring her dosage back up again, you know? And so 2 months ago, we did start tapering off of the sertraline. And as of today, I believe she is down to 25 milligrams, which is where she started, which means like literally in another week or two, she would be off of it. And you know what she's doing? Better than ever since all of this. And that activation stuff isn't there anymore. It was the fucking medication. I mean, excuse me. I don't mean to say that the medication is bad. I know that it helps a lot of people. And I can't tell how much of a role it's played for her, but even if it was just a placebo effect, it helped her, I think, on some level. The important thing is that she's doing better and that, she continues to have like little moments, but they're just moments. They're like what I would consider very natural moments. And she's got this wide range of emotion back. She'll have a good cry. There's an apology. It's like all the healthy signs of human beings processing themselves in their lives. That's what we see in her now. And she even said to me that she felt like when she was on the medication, she couldn't see things clearly. Like it was like she was clouded, basically, is what she described. And hey, don't get me wrong. Like I'm not under any illusions that something like that couldn't happen again. Like she certainly has it in her to have these behaviors. We've seen it. And we're still like, my wife and I are like, at any given moment when she starts to have a little thing, gets upset, me and my wife are both severely traumatized by the last year and just counting our blessings every day. So that's the important thing, that she's doing better. And we're very grateful to her doctors for the help that they gave us through this. But here's the thing that I want to say about my experience of interacting with the care, the professional medical care that she received, which is that her doctor was never, ever going to suggest that we try tapering off. Like that's not part of the protocol to suggest that. I had to really come to that in myself and stick to that and advocate for that. And it's easy to doubt it. I still kind of, I'm gonna knock on some wood right now. Hopefully I'm not jinxing nothing. That's why I haven't even been talking about it with y'all, because it's been going well. She's doing good. I don't want to say nothing. I don't want nothing to mess nothing up. But I think it's a significant thing that, yes, I think we were helped by the care, but at some point we had to part from what it was telling us, that if I give over complete agency to it, to a system, a medical system, or protocols, or research papers even, at some point, it can diverge from where you need to go for your own well-being. And this also is a similar kind of thing that played out more recently, if you've been listening, with my whole hip stuff and going to the doctor and getting the MRI done. If you haven't been listening and had persistent hip pain for many, many years, I had theories and ideas about what I thought was wrong with it. I had all kinds of things I was doing for it, but every time it would flare up, I would doubt myself, and I would doubt what I think I know about my own body. And I would say, you've never been to the doctor. You've never had any imaging done. Some people would say, those kinds of scans and those kinds of diagnoses are more definitive or more gold standard evidence than just how you feel about it or what you think about it, So I've always kind of doubted what I thought on some level. And finally, I decided to, check myself. So I finally bit the bullet and went to the doctor and jumped through the hoops you need to jump through to get the insurance company to pay for the MRI. Had it done. It was exactly what I thought it was. And the treatments that they offer, like if I look at like the risk reward analysis for that, I don't really think they're warranted. So I'm back where I started, but with a new sense of resolve and a new sense of clarity and a new confidence, I would say, in my own self. And I think both of these instances with both my daughter and my hip and these interactions with like the allopathic medicine that for years I've kind of just hid away from and decried a little bit, because it's so hard to stake ground for yourself as a practitioner that feels legitimate without having to, in some way, compare or interact with the way that most people see it, with the materialistic viewpoint that rules the day. So what I've observed is that if we give over our own God-given agency, and I used the word God, didn't I? If we give over the agency that's given to us by birth to a medical system or another person, it often does not pan out very well. And that in my experience, when people are able to heal, whether that's by allopathic means or other, it's because they are utilizing whatever care is being given to them or that they're receiving or information that they're getting to somehow trigger something from within them that is the healing process. That on some level, our medicine is a shot in the dark most of the time. And what makes it hit, what makes it work, is something that we can't explain, that we can't measure as much as we try to with whatever random controlled trials that we do. We can't. It's some other phenomena that explains why someone goes into remission from cancer or not, or my pain is more or less, or my daughter's mental health is okay. Like, it's such a range of external factors, I would say, but really someone's own internal, whatever, I don't even know what you call it, intuition, spirit. And that's why I've been doing some episodes about prayer and other kinds of inquiries into states of being and frames of perception that invite what I feel is whatever that mysterious element is, that there's some other dimensionality to it. And I think that is what yoga teaches, that other dimensionality. So, for whatever all of this might be worth to any of you who's listening, especially if you're listening Christmas week, if you're a yoga professional or a yoga practitioner or somebody who has had transformative experiences through yoga, who's also suffered health challenges and had to interact with Western medicine to either good or positive results, I imagine you have some sense of what I'm talking about, that there's a secret something. I don't know what to call it. There's not good words for it. But it maybe has something to do with spirit. That's the word that I've been using most. And so that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about my daughter. I wanted to talk about that in relationship to some of the things that have been happening with my hip and where it's been leading me, which I do think has to do with other dimensionality and spirit. And I was reading this book. I don't know if you listened last week. I had Richard Rosen on, and we were talking about this book, which people have different feelings about. It's called 14 Lessons in Yogi Philosophy. And I opened it up and I looked in it, and it has a section on spirit. And I was reading it and I thought, oh, this is kind of on point. So I thought I would read a bit of it to you as well. How can the finite express or comprehend the infinite? Spirit is the divine spark, our most precious inheritance from the divine power, a ray from the central sun, the real self. Words cannot express it. Our minds fail to grasp it. It is the soul of the soul. To understand it, we must understand God. For spirit is a drop from the spirit ocean, a grain of sand from the shores of the infinite, a particle of the sacred flame. It is that something within us which is the cause of our evolution through all the weary ages. It was the first to be, and yet it will be the last to appear in full consciousness. The spirit is that within us which closest approaches the center, is nearest to God. It is only in an occasional precious moment that we are aware of the existence of spirit within us. And in such moments, we are conscious of coming into the awful presence of the unknown. These moments may come when one is engaged in deep religious thought, while reading a poem bearing a precious message from soul to soul, in some hour of affliction when all human aid has failed us and when human words seem but mockery, in a moment when all seems lost and we feel the necessity of a direct word from a being higher than ourselves. When these moments come, they leave us a peace which never afterward entirely escapes us, and we are ever after changed beings. In the moment of illumination or the dawn of spiritual consciousness, we also feel the real presence of the Spirit. In these moments, we become conscious of our relationship with and connection with the center of life. Through the medium of the Spirit, God reveals Himself to us. Okay, so I hope that has any kind of resonance or meaning for anybody else out there. I feel like this year has really been a huge, important time for me. And it very much corresponded with the creation of the teacher training. And shout out to anybody who did the training this year with me, because you were there. You saw me work through things. And this is kind of where I landed, that it's very pragmatic, rational choice, in my view, to certainly be aware and educated about whatever science is available to us. But ultimately, the work of yoga is, I think, the work of spirit. And that's maybe something that the yoga teachers I've known in the profession or whatever has resisted, because we've always said yoga's not religion. And maybe there's a way we can have yoga be about spirit without it being religion. That's maybe some areas of conversation I'd like to have in the coming months. Maybe about religion and what that means. I think because what is genuinely healing me and is the most important thing in addressing my own pain, and was how I've been getting through, and I think also what's been helping heal my daughter, is tapping into a certain wisdom, a certain energy field where I've been taken care of, where I feel a nurturing force come to my aid. And that's kind of everything. So maybe that's enough of me just talking. I hope it's okay that I did this and I didn't have a guest this week, and that, I don't know, this was of interest to you all. I'm so very grateful to you, the listener, especially you real ones who've been since the beginning and listened to every episode and have just continued to stay with me through all this. So appreciate you, because I think that the energy of you listening and caring enough about the show, I feel that it contributes to my life, and it is my profound hope that in return, the show contributes to your life in some kind of positive way. So thank you to all of you who have reached out to me over the years, especially with everything with my daughter and my hip, and sent me like suggestions and just thoughtful, caring notes. And thank you to all of you who just listened and just for a moment thought a nice thought towards me. Hey, you know what? Thank you to anyone who listened, even if you don't like me, even if you're listening and you don't like me, I still appreciate you listening. I really am very grateful for the show. And I really want to send you a note of love and well wishes. And like I said, I've got some gold coming your way over the next few weeks. So do tune in. And yeah, I think that's good. What do you say? We keep our wits about us. And at the very least, be kind. Let's be kind to ourselves. Let's be kind to others. And I'll talk to you again soon. Please take care. Cheers.